Gears of War 3, we're doing a direct comparison between, on the left, Xbox Series X, and on the right, Xbox 360. So yes, the left is the Series X version of the game, which is a 4K resolution, still at 30 FPS between both of them, but on the left you do get auto HDR support, which is nice. So on the right, it's like 720p-ish or so, and yeah, obviously it looks a lot cleaner on the right with the 1x optimization that it's inheriting, and hopefully at some point down the road it gets some sort of FPS boost. That would be fantastic. So on the right, it actually is 360 hardware. I did fire up the old console in case you were wondering. Yep, it's the original hardware running the game, because obviously I think that's more of a good comparison point. And as always, these comparisons are a lot of work to do, so be sure to leave a like. It just helps it get out there more, and then subscribing is great as well. But yeah, it's just because these take quite a lot of effort to put together, but I thought that it synced quite well. So I picked a few campaign scenarios that I thought sort of lined up well and kind of showed off the game in action. So this is kind of not the opening segment, you'll see that later, but this is just the ship segment. This is when things start to really get rolling. You get into the story a little bit, and it just gives you an idea of some of the characters and introduces them, and it sets the stakes of the overall, well, really the end of this trilogy. Obviously, we know the Gears franchise continued onwards with a new set of characters years and years later, but yeah, this one definitely did kind of feel like a grand conclusion to what they had started on the 360 generation, just in terms of really pushing the technology, doing great stuff with the characters and the campaign. You could play it alone, you could play it in a group of 4 players, which was fantastic. It really was technology pushing. It was definitely impressive, and I'd say they still haven't necessarily hit the same levels of co-op that they did in this one, and that's for sure. But yeah, this game was really great. I absolutely loved it. The delay that it had kind of almost before launch, I guess you could say, really did do wonders in regards to the extra polish, the extra content. I don't know if you guys remember that from back in the day, but yeah, it was like, oh no, we gotta wait forever, and then it came out and I was like, wow, okay, yeah, definitely worth it, because the game was really quite fantastic. I definitely enjoyed the story elements of it, the various modes. There's horde, there's beast mode where you could actually be the Locust creatures, which was cool. And then obviously the multiplayer. There were some weapons in the multiplayer where I was like, but and I will show off some of the multiplayer maps towards the end of this, because I do like to show that as well, just so you can see the difference if you were to go and play it there, because you can still enjoy it with other people right now. There's you can play against some others, and I guess bots fill it as well, so you can keep enjoying this multiplayer forever, technically, as long as they keep it rolling. I do hope eventually we get some sort of collection. That would be fantastic, but for now, we still get a really great presentation, especially on the Series X. I mean, it looks fantastic. It looks clean. It looks clear. It looks, well, I guess you could say almost like a game that released today, just in terms of the visual quality. But the 360 version looks really kind of fuzzy. It's not as clear is the biggest thing. A lot of objects seem really sort of blurred out, especially when there's multiple objects in a scene. You've got your characters at the forefront that you were just seeing back there, and then in the backdrop those characters became fuzzier and fuzzier, whereas here it just seems like they're really clear the whole way through. And of course, for some of these action sequences, they're not going to be quite exact, just because it's a little bit of a different situation how things are handled. It's a little harder to match that kind of stuff up, if that makes sense. But it really just kind of comes alive with that sort of just quick resolution boost. That's all it was. It just really added an extra layering of quality to the game for the longevity of the experience. And I'm very thankful that they actually did that, because it just holds up much, much better with that, upgrade. And there's so many other titles that I'd love to see this happen to, because I don't know if it's a quick thing for them, but it really does make a huge difference for those wanting to play it for the first time, experience what it has to offer. And we're doing a quick load time test here, in case you were wondering. I thought it was only fair we threw this on the external there, because that's just where it's held, and then on the right is the, you know, the 360 kind of roaming through it. So yeah, a bit of a gap for sure, right, in the loading. I thought that was kind of just a fun thing to throw in because I could actually match up the loading screens in this one. Like when I do comparisons of the Halo MCC content to 360 Halo content, the loading is done very differently, whereas here, you know, obviously because it's the same game, it's not like a different package or anything, you can directly compare how much faster it loads, which is a significant difference. You're also noticing that, and a lot of games seem to do this, they have this like brief sort of blackness moment before certain things happen, like sequences, like cinematics, and those are always cut down by like a good second or so on the Series X, which is really funny for lining things up, but also just kind of fascinating at the same time too. It's really quite cool. So this is the second part of what I wanted to show off. This is even harder to line up because it gets a little bit more random, but you're just going to see a lot of carnage here. This is from the DLC Raam's Shadow, so you can actually play as the huge monstrous creature from the first Gears of War title, which is pretty awesome. Or like, you know, the weird boy band of Locust he's got, but yeah, look at that thing. He's menacing looking, and just like the detail and the darkness and the colors seem to just really come alive a lot more on the Series X version. I don't know if you noticed that, but it's just like it could just be what I'm capturing with, but it just seems so much more like kind of washed out and not as, you know, perfect for color as the Series X version does. And that's also like a little bit more, I guess, the vibrancy of the 4K as well, which is just appreciated to have. I mean, it makes the game look so much better, and I think, you know, longevity wise, it just really makes this a lot easier for people to get into years down the line, because that barrier of quality, you'll look at it and be like, ugh, but you know, you can see it now and you're like, this looks really good. I mean, I'm quite happy with it. Obviously there's more that could be done frame rate wise. I think there's definitely that potential, but you know, I'm just happy that it looks this much better, because it's beautiful looking. It really is. It makes that original art style truly come alive without them having to do any sort of like remastering or any sort of like, you know, real work on the game. They just applied this, and it's quite a stunning thing to take in. At least I think so. You know, every little bit of it just looks fantastic, and then also the auto HDR. That's a nice touch as well. So it's these almost like just smaller things that they've applied that really do make quite a difference in the experience that you're enjoying for Gears of War. And I think Gears of War 3 is a really great game and definitely worth playing. I do kind of believe that you should play the entirety of the franchise to really have a pure understanding of some of the more emotionally impactful moments that go on in this one. But they do have a really nice like summary thing that kind of gets you into it. But if you play the trilogy together, I think you get a lot out of the trilogy of games. And I think, you know, even going onwards to 4 and 5, which I do quite enjoy those games, you know, the overall story of playing every Gears game really just kind of adds to the overall package. And I definitely suggest the Shadow, because this DLC is just awesome. I mean, like, look, this is fantastic, right? But don't worry, we're going to switch over. Now we're going to do the dream sequence. So this is actually the opening of the game. I kind of debated on putting it first, but I kind of wanted some more regular gameplay initially. But then this is really neat because it's like a dream sequence remake of a level from Gears 1, basically. And it's just like using that moment, or those moments really, because it's kind of a bunch of sequences. Like this is directly the opening of the first Gears of War game. And then it kind of fades out to a little bit of a kind of a later level in the game, if that makes sense. You go through the State House. But yeah, this is almost directly taken. It's changed because it's a dream sequence, but this one really does showcase the difference here. At least I think so. You know, just a lot more definition to the shadows, the quality of the characters. You know, there's a lot more jagged edges on the 360 version, obviously. And it just really looks fantastic, and it's a lot darker, and it's just like, I think the quality kind of just lines up a lot better. A lot of the lighting bits and stuff like that look really good, and all of the really grime layered walls and surfaces really kind of stick out with definition in comparison to them being more, well, less defined on the right. At least I think so. And it's really neat to have this thought of like, wow, I thought Gears 3 looked really great when it, first came out back in the day, and obviously now it's changed a lot. I guess I could align that up better. Anyways, doesn't matter. We're getting into the sequence here, just brief. And yeah, it's just this really cool sort of combative situation where the whole world's kind of shifting in that, and it's all a dream sequence that just kind of feels lively, feels intense. I think that's the point kind of where I align things up to a degree. Obviously, combat going to be a little bit different, but it just looks really cool, and it's filled with little details, and it just sets the stage for understanding, again, the stakes of what's happening. And for context, if you haven't noticed already, the left is where we are taking the audio from for this comparison, just because it tends to sound a little bit better. But yeah, I think this game looks fantastic. If you've never played Gears of War 3, you are totally missing out on an excellent time. A very well-rounded experience, something that offers a lot of content and neat ways to kind of play. It's really great, and I definitely look back upon it, I want to say very, very fondly, as being one of the better games I've ever played. And then the cool corpser moment is like, wow. And then we split off into the multiplayer. So I picked 3 maps here, some of the more popular ones, and I tried to match it up with bots in the background doing their thing. So that's also a little bit hard, keep in mind, because the bots are like, trying to kill me and kill other people. But yeah, I think it actually kind of came together decently well as a side-by-side, so that you could see the two of them in motion and get an idea of the different environments that are kind of going on. And just like, it looks like the lighting pops a lot more, I want to say, is a big thing on there, just the glow of it. I think it's quite cool. And then also the blood definition, a lot more intense. Gotta have that chainsaw in there. Oh yeah, just fantastic. And then we've got Gridlock here, which is kind of, well, I mean, the Gears of War map to show off if you're showing off a Gears of War map, I think. And everything just, like, so much more comes alive. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed this look at Gears of War 3. It was a lot of fun to do, because I do love this franchise. So, yeah, kind of neat, definitely interesting, and it's fantastic to see that they were able to make it look so good, and that it's holding steady, and hopefully, we'll be able to take this comparison further someday with additional upgrades that they could possibly do in the future, because I think there is that potential for it, and I think it could, definitely be a lot cleaner with that.
Now hear this. Marcus Phoenix and Hazard Watch to CIC immediately. Phoenix, Santiago, and Stratton report to CIC immediately.